Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It is 5:06. Good morning. It's Wednesday. We're still digging out, but my understanding is that a lot of streets have been plowed finally, and it continues to look so beautiful out there. Bethany Mandel, do you finally have any way to get your vehicles out other than giant drone and helicopter apparatus?
So it's funny because yesterday you could just drive into the unplowed street, but it was actually being made more complicated yesterday because when they finally plowed last night, they made a wall of ice from the driveway. And so thank God, I drive a tank. So once you get over the wall of ice, I could actually drive on the road, but it did take some effort to get over that wall of ice they created for us.
There you go. But it's still quite beautiful. I'm just struck by every time I look out the window, especially at sundown, the shimmering.
Yeah, the sundown last night was incredible.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. So you gotta find the lemonade out there with these lemons that God has thrown down from the heavens. Coming up at 6:35, Cal Thomas will be our guest. 7:05, Luke Pettit, Assistant Secretary to the Treasury. That's right. The house that Hamilton built. Talk about financial institutions and the Trump accounts, which have just gotten a boost here. I hope you're all looking at these Trump accounts. It's a very cool. Oh yeah, you can take full advantage there in the Mandel household. And then talk about excited. Love this guy, Congressman Jim Jordan, America's congressman. He of Ohio, of course, and the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. Lots to throw by Chairman Jordan coming up at 8:35. Excuse me. And yeah, it's just I can't decide whether it's this sheen, this ice sheen that is starting to soften a bit, but it's just coating and covering all of the snow that has fallen, and it almost looks like fiberglass. You know those really cool 70s speedboats that had that fiberglass, or like dune buggies had that really cool sort of luminescence, glow, and everything inside them with the sort of the sparkle inside. That's what the snow still looks like on our front yard and our backyard. Yes. And when the sun is at the right angle and it sheens off of all that, and refracts off of all of the little crystallized ice, molecules in there. It's just stunning, absolutely stunning.
I sent my kids outside yesterday. I didn't actually send them. That's not true. I did not want them to go outside because I knew that this is what would happen. They loved skating across it on the front lawn. Yeah. And then they started running. And at almost the same moment, they all three of my younger children wiped out at the same time, really ate it. And they came in bloodied and bruised. And I was like, yes, I could see that coming.
Yeah,
but they're
this is
so
how limbs
light.
Get broken. Yeah.
Yes. Well, they're so scraped up. It was really bad. And they're so light that they're not falling through.
They're not crunching through, yeah.
Yeah. When it first fell, I was falling through. And then yesterday I brought out the garbage, which was silly because the garbage truck didn't bother trying to come down my street. But I tried. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't even falling through, which maybe that's just because I'm so light now.
Exactly. You're
I've lost so much weight.
Yeah, send that obese Seth out there with the garbage to take care of it.
He finally weighs more than me. It was such an exciting moment in our marriage.
Well, that is very cool. It's again, I'm not a big fan of the snow. I'm miserable right now because I can't go out and be as active as I want to be. But I will admit, looking out the window right now is a joy. It is lovely, but I'm ready for the sun to come out, start melting all this. But don't look for that anytime soon.
I'm looking at my weather app right now.
Yeah, very low temperatures for the rest of the week here.
We will dip maybe above freezing Tuesday and Wednesday.
Right, that's what I'm seeing too.
But that's really it. Thursday, Friday. So this is how you know that the Jews don't control the weather. I'm not interested in this. I read yesterday that this is one of the coldest winters in the D.C. region in the last 150 years.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk about this, and maybe we could spend a whole segment on it later today. It's so cold that water mains and sewer lines are breaking across this area.
Yeah.
And the Washington Water, who serve Montgomery County and Prince George's County, put out a warning yesterday. asking people not to use that much water because the whole system is under so much stress because of the constant breaks all over the place because it's so cold.
Yeah. Well, but by the way, I want to break this to you. Whenever anyone says that the Jews control the weather, we don't mean all of you. Okay. We don't think that every single Jew has some say in this, and that there's y'all can't get together and figure these things out without
we can't.
some sort
and
of
we
big
can't
thrown-out
agree.
fight.
Nor would we choose
I mean,
a
I'm
leader.
sorry. I've seen the tavern scene and the wedding scene at Fiddler on the Roof. You guys are not going to agree. There's always a ruckus. No, we see certain Jews who have the power and control. And when I say we think that, I mean Trayon White and Candace Owens. And
right.
Did
you know that there's sewage flowing through the Potomac right now? Have you?
It's been going on for a while. In fact, they're thrilled that this story popped up about the snowstorm because it takes the focus off of the fact that D.C. Public Works has been allowing raw sewage to pump into the beautiful Potomac for weeks on end now.
Yes.
We've been covering it in WMAL News here. It's another sign of their incompetence. And by the way, speaking of the snow and their incompetence, did you see on the 14th Street Bridge yesterday during rush hour?
Yes.
I mean, just understand something. Anyone who was working in D.C. yesterday was there because they were critical to the operation of our federal government, our military, our law enforcement, or the public works of Washington, D.C. These are the essential workers. And what did the essential workers get as their reward for braving the conditions yesterday and going into work? They got an hours and hours long delay on the 14th Street Bridge because it was at that moment at sundown, 5:30, 6 o'clock, rush hour going home, that they decided to put 4 trucks all the way across, lane by lane, to plow and salt the roads one last time. What were they thinking? You couldn't do that at 1 in the afternoon? You couldn't wait and do that, just after the commute? I guess they were trying to get it before the sun went down and there was another freezing condition. But what a nightmare it was on the way home.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that you necessarily are the brightest bulb if you're in charge of such things. A lot of those jobs are rewarded by, who you know, and not necessarily your competency.
I mean, again, I'm trying to be as generous as possible, and maybe it's the policy that because as soon as the sun goes down, technically that's when you have the danger of freezing. But it was freezing all day. Yes, the temperature dropped, but once you're below freezing, freezing is freezing. It's going to freeze, right? Yeah. So I don't understand the timing at all. And also, of course, people are now, recognizing what you're recognizing, Bethany, where they put the priorities on the plows coming through and getting the roads cleared up. But in so doing, they have now created a blockade in everybody's driveway. So even though the roads are clear for people to drive, you now have to go through and unblock your own driveway before you can drive. And you don't have the benefit of the equipment that the city or county has. So unless you've got a legion of children that can go out there and shovel it through. The good news is usually what they've plowed into your driveway is not, it's already been broken up now.
Right, exactly.
It's not a giant chunk of ice, so you should be able to go in and just get some muscle behind it before it freezes.
I wanted to give your city of Annapolis some good publicity, by the way. They made an announcement that it was not feasible to require people to shovel their sidewalks because they were like, it's frozen over. Like, this is not practical. It's not a fair request. Meanwhile, here in Montgomery County, they're threatening fines as of today.
Yeah, no, Annapolis is pretty, and also I even have an extra benefit in my neighborhood where we don't even have sidewalks.
Oh,
where
that's
I
great.
live. So all you got to do is worry about your driveway, which is enough to deal with for me, California kid.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Tennessee still, though, while we sit here and whine and complain and wax poetic about this snowstorm, and listen, D.C. and the surrounding environs up to Baltimore and down to Richmond here, we're not necessarily used to this sort of thing. It's every few years, maybe, honestly, at this level, it's been a decade since we've had this, but we still have the infrastructure, we have the materials, we have people in place to be able to handle this. Tennessee, not so much. Right now, Tennessee, it looks like, still suffering from power outages. There's still heavy snow on the ground and ice. They've had, sadly, dozens of deaths as a result of this storm. It's definitely had it the worst overall. It's the highest number of power outages by a wide margin. Still, hundreds of thousands are suffering without power. And this is a region where, yes, it gets cold in Tennessee, but I don't think they necessarily prep for storms as just sort of a normal occurrence the way we do here in this area. And that's not saying much. According to a lot of sources right now, Tennessee is absolutely the hardest hit and the worst affected by this. Also, not for nothing, Mississippi and Louisiana had ice storms, worst in decades, major outages there as well. They're often cited right up there with Tennessee as suffering some major repercussions from these storms. The northeastern states, of course, had some major significant downfalls, 20-plus inches in some places, but they're used to it. It's these southern states that really got walloped, and they're still figuring it out.
My good friend Emily Zanotti, who you can follow her on Twitter.
Of course, we know Emily.
Yeah, she posted that in her front yard, she had a pine tree that exploded. I didn't know that was a thing that could happen. Apparently, the sap inside the tree can expand so much when it's frozen that the tree can explode. So that's what it did. I learned something new.
What's weird is that it was a pine tree, because you figure pine trees are sort of designed to withstand some cold temperatures, but it is. Yeah,
that's how bad it is. So this is a weird factoid about me. I'm in a lot of backyard chicken Facebook groups.
Wait, but you don't have backyard chickens.
I don't have chickens. No,
you're just in those groups for the entertainment of it.
So I always think I might want backyard chickens, and being
I do too.
in this.
No, by the way, this is something we have in common,
and
I feel like something else we have in common is that we married people who talk us out of that on a regular basis.
Yes, and so that's why I'm in these groups, because they inoculate me against wanting chickens, because people are like, my chicken is in my bathtub and it has croup or it has a latched egg, and I'm like, oh, I have enough kids. I don't need to have a chicken in my bathtub and be massaging an egg out of it. I can't do that. So I've found it actually very helpful. But as a result,
I do love the urban Jewish version of all creatures great and small right here in the shadow of the nation's capital.
But I promise I'm getting to a point.
Yes.
So in this group, there's people from all over the country, and it's been really interesting to see the level of cold that is hitting the rest of the country. -20, -30 across like Wisconsin and Minnesota and all these places, but all across the country, from these ice storms in Tennessee and Mississippi to these ice cold places, people are posting about like how they're trying to prep their chickens and their coops, and I've just found it to be very interesting, because this is unprecedented cold, and everyone is kind of like jerry-rigging their chicken coops, trying to figure out how to keep them protected from the cold.
Yeah. No, that is something that you would normally not think about,
right.
If you're living down, down south and you have your chickens. Yeah, I would love to have chickens too, but Meredith, who grew up in Oklahoma, and she was not in a rural agricultural area, but she had plenty of friends in school who did live in those areas, and she is constantly talking me down off of that cliff.
Seth is too. When we were in Israel, we stayed on a farm.
Yeah.
And they had chickens, and my kids all wanted chickens. But now I'm like, I don't want to be going out there and feeding them and everything in 10 degrees. Yeah. So I just don't think. I think keeping 6 kids alive is my achievement.
You barely succeeded with that yesterday with your pile up in your front yard. So yeah, exactly. We don't want to visit from Chicken Protective Services. But, some animals, by the way, thrive in the snow. It's very funny. A friend of the program from Young America's Foundation, Jessica Jansen, she has a dog, a yellow lab, that they adopted, or they got the lab from Minnesota, where Jessica's family lives, right? And so she put out an amazing video of this dog who has not lived in Minnesota, in 2 years since he was a puppy. But he was thriving in the snow. She had this video of him just going nuts in her front yard. And meanwhile, as I was shoveling our driveway yesterday, one of my neighbors walked by with a dog, and you'd think, oh, dogs love the snow. Not all dogs love the snow. This dog was so angry and so miserable out on his walk, ostensibly to go out and make some yellow snow and then get back in the house. He was so ticked off that his owner took him out. How is Truman, the famous Truman dog from the Mandel home? Does he enjoy the snow?
He is being very annoying because he can't make up his mind if he likes it or not. So he wants to go in, and then he wants to come out, and then in and out, and it's just constant. And it's been days. But he also is driving us crazy because he's he's a poodle, so he's kind of like a protective dog.
Yeah.
And so the kids and Seth all went to the backyard to take shovels out of the shed and use sleds from the shed, and he was going nuts trying to protect Seth and the children from the snow. And so he was biting at their ankles and trying to lassie them.
Which, by the way, doesn't help. It's actually a dangerous situation.
And so he was grabbing at their ankles, trying to pull them to safety. And every time they fell, he was jumping on them and checking them. And it's very sweet, but golly, is it annoying. He does this also when we're at the ocean. Whenever a wave comes in, he tries to bite the wave, and then he tries to pull the children away.
Yeah.
And we were on a vacation once to the Outer Banks, and we had to stop bringing him to the beach because he drove us nuts.
I do love it when a dog's instincts override their limited intelligence, and
that's
they
Truman
start
for
doing
you.
things like that. By the way, speaking of very sweet, I do want to say this because DC gets a bad rap. We're described as people who are very shallow and selfish and arrogant, and I can go on and on. That said, Mayor Bowser tweeted out something very cool. Over 600 DC residents signed up for what's called Snow Team Heroes. And what they do is they go out and clear the walkways, sidewalks, and driveways for seniors and residents with disabilities and people. And they got over 100 houses taken care of, which by my math means 6 per house, which is probably, sort of overkill labor-wise. But that's D.C. for you as well. If you are in D.C. and you want to do that, you got time on your hands, you're not going in, go check out Snow Team Heroes there on the D.C. government website, and you can help out your neighbors. All right, coming up, the plan for Democrats to redistrict Virginia hit a bit of a snag. It's called, the law. That's a snag and a half. We'll give you the latest on a Virginia judge's ruling that might give some relief to that redistricting effort. Relief for the rest of us from the redistricting effort. We'll give you the details next.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It is 5:37. Good morning. We're chugging through the news cycle here and everything that's affecting your life. Sometimes that's not news, but in this case, the weather affects your life, and, by the way, it's news, and certainly how our local municipalities are responding to the snow effects. We'll continue to discuss that as the morning goes on. Also, at 6:05, we'll hear from Sean Kennedy, Virginians for Safer Communities, about, more nonsense from Steve Descano and other people who are supposed to keep your communities safe from criminals. 6:35, Cal Thomas. 7:05, Luke Pettit from the Treasury Department, Assistant Secretary there for Financial Institutions. Talk about some news with regard to those Trump accounts that really isn't getting enough attention. And then at 8:35, we'll speak with the Chairman of Judiciary in the House, Jim Jordan. Larry O'Connor here with Bethany Mandel, also, by the way, a proprietor of the Mom Wars podcast, of course, at the Mom Wars Substack. And I neglected to mention this yesterday, and I apologize, but we continue to pray for Julie Gunlock, who, of course, is a member of our team, regular host here Monday through Wednesday. We're blessed to have both Bethany and Cassie Smedley filling in, but Julie will be coming back. She continues on the road to recovery, and if you want more information, want to pray for her, go to givesendgo.com/Julie Gunlock, please. But she's doing better and better every day. We love Julie.
Praying.
So, with all the nonsense coming out of Richmond, probably the most egregious thing that they've been doing began just before Election Day, and that was the move to redistrict Virginia to the tune of 10 Democrat seats to 1 Republican seat. They've jammed this through both the House of Delegates and the Senate. It's expected that Spamberger, of course, as a diabolically partisan Democrat, would sign this in. They would go on the ballot. However, many people from the very get-go said that there are multiple reasons why this move is contrary to Virginia state law and the Virginia Constitution. And yesterday, a Virginia judge supported that hypothesis, rejecting the push to redistrict the Commonwealth. And, we'll see where this goes right now. But the judge says that the General Assembly improperly expanded that special session and the scope of the special session that they called right before Election Day. Also, there's some question and some concern from those who were watching this process that based on the Constitution and the rules that apply for a special session for redistricting, that you have to do it a certain amount of time before Election Day. And, of course, in Virginia, early voting begins all the way back in mid-September. And so when Democrats say, well, it's before Election Day, it's like, oh, really? So define what Election Day means exactly. The first day you go to vote or the last day? You're the people who created this election season, the election quarter, with 3 months' worth of voting. And, of course, they called this session for redistricting as something like 10 days before the final votes were cast. But that obviously goes contrary to the spirit of the idea that this is supposed to be done before Election Day, because the whole purpose of doing it before Election Day is that voters know about it before they go to vote. And you had weeks and weeks and weeks of voting going on before it happened. So as of now, it appears the judge has voided this. It will go on to the state Supreme Court, and one, well, holds their breath, doesn't one, to see where the state Supreme Court may fall down on this.
Can I ask perhaps a dumb question?
Always. I just hope I have an answer.
So could a similar situation happen in Maryland with Andy Harris? Could the courts kind of...
Yes. In fact, the courts have struck down. Now, we just had a Maryland delegate on yesterday who sort of broke that down for us. And what Democrats are trying to do is remove language from the Maryland state constitution with regard to how districts are drawn that will basically allow them to gerrymander with abandon. And that will keep them free of any judge actually acting fairly and properly with regard to what the law is. But as the constitution of the state currently sits, yes, judges should be able to stop what Democrats are trying to do in Annapolis if past is prologue. That's what happened before. But before, we had a Republican governor who was utilizing the state legal infrastructure to fight against the legislature on it. Now you've got a governor who's on board with it. So it's just one level of argumentation that's taken out of the mix that carries some weight in the court. But yes, I believe Maryland, as it stands now, could do the same thing.
Can I ask a dumb follow-up question? This is just, we could call this segment Larry Explains It All, and Larry just explains things to Bethany.
Or Larry just pulls things out of his butt and sounds like he has some sort of reasonable authority.
You sound very convincing. Many years of radio practice.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my follow-up question. Is this, there's so many wonderful law organizations like America's First Legal, Pacific Law Legal Foundation, all of these small organizations that do things. Yeah. Is this in the purview of one of those small organizations, or is the RNC hiring lawyers?
I think these were actually the Republicans in the state legislature of Virginia, of the Commonwealth of Virginia, have actually pushed this motion through. I don't think that it is enjoined right now, or it's been supported by America First Legal or those other groups. They could certainly jump in at some point as the fight goes on, but at the moment I believe it's just the Republicans themselves that have pushed this through and blocked it. Mark Obenshain, state senator of Virginia, put out the statement here saying that the ruling from the judge that this passage from the Democrats' partisan gerrymandering amendment 4 days by the General Assembly, 4 days before the election in November, violated the clear and unambiguous notice requirements of the law. The court entered an injunction prohibiting this referendum that would have gotten to the voters of Virginia on April 21st. Looks like that means they're going to have to wait until the next midterms. That would be the same year as the next presidential election, 2028, to be able to try to do this redistricting and then have a new congressional makeup. That's what it appears right now. Like I said, this could go to the state Supreme Court, and who knows where that might end up. So we'll keep looking. But right now, this is a win for the good guys. It's 5:43.
Never miss an episode of The Derek Hunter Show. If you do, we just might talk about you. 3 o'clock on WMAL.
You know, this is sort of related to the whole redistricting effort, but it's frankly even more important, and that has to do with apportionment. You know, constitutionally, we do the census all the time so that, first of all, the government can know exactly how many people are in the country and where they're living and how they can get their benefits and resources and all the things that the states need to accommodate their populations. But another major reason why we do the census is to figure out the congressional districts in each state, the apportionment. This then relates directly to how those states are represented in the House of Representatives, which then again translates to the Electoral College vote for president every year. And an incredible new study out based on the migration habits of Americans leaving certain states and going to other states put out a forecast for apportionment in this country in 2030 when the next major census is due. Now, let me pause for a second, because we still believe, many of us still believe, that the Department of Commerce needs to redo the apportionment from 2020 census, because under the Biden administration, it was done wrong. Certain states were over-allocated via the census. Other states were under-allocated. They've admitted it, by the way. The Commerce Department under Biden said, yeah, we screwed up. Okay, well, then you should reapportion, because right now states like California, New York, and Illinois are overrepresented in Congress, and states like Texas and Florida are underrepresented. But setting that aside, based on what the population looks like right now, Bethany Mandel, in 2030, California will lose 4 seats. Oregon, Illinois, New York, and Minnesota will all lose 1 seat. Wisconsin and Pennsylvania will also lose a seat. Who will gain those seats? Utah, Arizona, Idaho, Georgia, North Carolina all gain a seat. Florida gains 2 seats. Texas gains 4 seats. All in all, when you look at the last several election cycles, blue state versus red state, this would be a swing to red states of a major, like nine electoral college votes.
Wow.
For the Republican candidate for president in the next election.
Can I admit something?
Yeah.
I did not realize that we were on the air for a significant part of that segment. I just thought you were talking to me about this and trying to like
it's my
make
natural
I
delivery.
thought you were trying to make me smarter. And you were like, okay, Bethany,
Hey,
clearly the last segment you showcased your stupidity. So
we're
let's
about
prep
to talk
you.
about this thing, and you need to not sound like a moron. So I'm sorry if I put that voice on. No, well, it's my natural delivery. I'm glad that you
No,
admit
it
this,
was
though.
all me. It was all me not realizing that this is what we do. We're on the radio and we talk about things on the radio.
The fact is, Florida and Texas should have a couple of more House seats right now, based on the last census,
yes.
and they've admitted
Well,
that.
this is why they're doing the. I related. I thought that this was the redistricting conversation, because this is how Democrats are trying to get out of it. Is they're redistricting and trying to get rid of any Republican they possibly can in places where they can achieve that.
Because they know this is coming. Yes, but that doesn't help them in the Electoral College, which is critical for the presidency.
Correct.
It doesn't matter how you redistrict within your state. If you lose districts, that means you lose power in the House, and it means you lose power in the presidential election. But there's one other thing that this explains, and that has to do with this, fight to the death for illegal immigrants and non-citizens to not be deported from this country.
Yep.
Because right now, the way the census is done and the way these congressional districts are apportioned state by state, they do not take into account your citizenship or even legal status. If you are an illegal immigrant and you're in California, you get counted in the census. That leads to how that state is represented in Congress and the Electoral College, regardless of citizenship. So you're in the country illegally, you're a non-voter, but you're still counted. That's why California and Minnesota, and you listen to the states that I just said are going to be losing their seats. They're the same states that are fighting tooth and nail to make sure that nobody gets deported. They're the same states that Joe Biden sent all these illegal immigrants to by plane rather than continue to load them up in Texas and Florida, because they know that this is their power.
Well, this is why in August President Trump issued a call for a new census. But there's a lot of hysteria that's New York Times published a piece yesterday. U.S. population growth slows sharply as immigration numbers plunge. New census estimates show the effects of falling birth rates and President Trump's anti-immigration policies. As his term continues, immigration is expected to drop further. This is one of those things where, depending on the glasses that you wear, you're like, oh, this is glass half full or glass half empty. This is a good thing. Lowering illegal immigration in our eyes, and I think the eyes of like sane Americans, is a good thing. But they understand that this comes with, a loss of power. Yeah. And
There needs to be a Supreme Court ruling on the language in the census with regard to counting people in this country illegally with regard to the census and apportionment. Let me make a prediction. The moment the Supreme Court takes the power out of this equation and they say, yeah, no, we're not going to count illegal immigrants anymore for census, Democrats will lose all of their concern over illegal immigrants. Who's going to cut our lawns? Who's going to make our beds? Well, these poor people, it's just a Maryland man. It's just, they will not give one whit about these people the second they don't equate to political power for them. That's the decision.
My favorite thing about how they talk about illegal immigrants, by the way, is how insanely racist it is. It feels like how people in the Civil War talked about black people. It's like, well, who's going to pick my cotton? It's like, maybe that's not a good thing.
There's a reason why they sound the same. It's the same political party and the same ideology. 554.